Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever tried teaching the mechanics of a flashback to a room full of energetic students, you know exactly how tough it is to keep them tracking with that timeline. It's like a giant puzzle. But today, we're going to solve that. We're unpacking a really comprehensive 4-day lesson plan designed specifically to teach story grammar and flashback plots, all using a vibrant, culture-based anchor text. If you want to guide your learners through complex narrative structures and actually keep them engaged, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's just dive right in, straight into the middle of the action. Listen to this. Suddenly, the loud beat of a drum brought Marco back to the present. Do you feel that sudden jolt? That's exactly what our main character Marco experiences when a drum beat literally pulls him out of a memory. This one sentence perfectly captures the mechanical shift of a flashback. It's that snap back to reality, and it's the exact narrative device we want our students to master.
Here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with our anchor text, the Quiamis Festival story. Then we'll walk through the daily breakdown. Day 1 on story elements, Day 2 analyzing the author's purpose, Day 3 on collaborative sequencing, and finally, Day 4 covering performance tasks. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The Quiamis Festival story, grounding the lesson in culture and memory.
So, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the daily pedagogy, we have to understand the vehicle for all this learning. Basically, a flashback is just a narrative device that interrupts present events to reveal past memories, right? And this specific text serves to teach the core competency of comprehending literature by noting these complex story grammar elements. In our anchor text, we have a boy named Marco. He's standing by the road watching the grand parade of the Quiamis Festival in Misamis Oriental. As he's taking in the vibrant dancers and decorated floats, the story suddenly interrupts this present reality to pull us back into a memory. Now take a look at how this story in a story arc actually maps out. You can show your students exactly how the narrative leaves the present parade, jumps back 3 years, and then eventually returns. It's a full circle. We start in the present with Marco at the parade. Boom, the flashback hits. 3 years earlier, a 9-year-old Marco travels to the provincial capital. We walk chronologically through his memory, visiting handicraft booths in the morning, joining a coconut decorating contest where he paints these beautiful seas and mountains, watching afternoon cultural dances that tell the province's history, and capping it off with delicacies and fireworks. Then the flashback ends. We're right back in the present, where Marco realizes the festival is truly about cultural unity.
All right, moving on to Section 2, Day 1, Story Elements, focusing on explicit teaching and our initial introduction.
Day 1 is all about building that rock-solid foundation. You kick things off by tapping into their prior knowledge, maybe reviewing images or slogans of local regional celebrations. Get them talking. From there, you, the teacher, model the learning by reading the anchor text. This is your classic I-do phase. You explicitly teach the target vocabulary and the story grammar structures. But here's the kicker. We don't just want them pointing out a flashback. We want them to know why it's there. You really have to emphasize why authors use flashbacks in the first place. Assessment here is super observational. You'll just use a quick checklist to monitor listening, participation, and vocabulary as they start spotting these initial details.
Which brings us to Section 3. Day 2. Analyzing purpose, with a big focus on guided practice and text markers.
On Day 2, the focus shifts. We start releasing some of that responsibility, empowering the students to actively hunt for the structural clues that make a flashback work. By looking for these text markers, they see the actual mechanics behind the magic. Think about it. We have the language of the present. Things like, the streets were filled, or suddenly a drum beat brought Marco back. Contrast that with the obvious signals of a memory, 3 years earlier, or when he was only 9 years old. By putting the present moment side by side with these clear flashback markers, students see exactly how authors manipulate time. It's pretty cool when it clicks for them.
But, mechanics are really only half the battle. We also need deep critical comprehension. So during this session, educators throw out questions like, what is the author's purpose? And what details from the text support your answer? This is a fantastic formative assessment to make sure they're grasping the why. Why on earth did the author include the detail about Marco's coconut painting or those traditional dances? It pushes the kids to realize that the author is celebrating the culture, unity, and pride of the people of Misamis Oriental, using Marco's memory as the perfect lens.
Next up, Section 4. Day 3. Collaborative sequencing, applying everything through group work. Okay, transitioning into Day 3, we let go of the reins even more. Students take what they've learned and apply it collaboratively. And, as any teacher will tell you, this is exactly where the classroom gets wonderfully, loudly chaotic. In groups, they sort words and build sentences.
Then, they have to sequence the actual events of the story chronologically. Finally, they build an outline to structure the narrative grammar. They are literally pulling the story apart, examining all the gears, and putting it back together. And you're just circulating, recording evidence of their understanding right in the middle of that organized chaos.
I want to pause on this number right here. 8. Why is 8 so absolutely crucial on day 3? Well, a key performance standard for this whole block is that learners must successfully sequence at least 8 specific events from the text. They've got to map it all out. Marco watching the parade, the memory trigger, the trip to the Capitol, the booths, the decorating contest, the dances, the fireworks, and that final snap back to the present. By hitting this metric of 8 events, students prove they truly have both literal and inferential comprehension of the flashback plot.
And that brings us to the final stretch, Section 5, Day 4, Performance Tasks, demonstrating and integrating all that learning.
Day 4 is the big one. It's the ultimate demonstration of learning and independent practice. And thankfully, we are not just handing out a multiple-choice quiz. Educators have this wonderfully diverse set of integrated, formative assessment options to choose from. For listening and speaking, maybe students retell the story or do an oral presentation. For reading and writing, they could draft a reaction paragraph or even a persuasive text based on the cultural elements they learned. And for arts and technology, how about creating posters, doing a visual text critique, or planning a multimedia project? The whole idea is to let students show off their grasp of flashback plots through creative avenues that actually fit their unique strengths.
When you zoom out and look at this whole 4-day progression, the brilliant logic of the lesson design really shines. The ultimate goal is super clear. Learners must produce their own culture-based narrative and persuasive texts using accurate grammatical structures. Over these 4 days, they haven't just passively sat there reading a story about a festival. No way! They've deconstructed its mechanics. They've pinpointed the grammar, the time markers, the author's purpose. And they did all of that to equip themselves with the exact tools needed to go from being passive readers to active creators of their own culturally resonant stories.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on as you plan your next lesson series. How will you use complex narrative structures like flashbacks to bridge your students' cultural memories with their present learning? Storytelling is just such a powerful tool, and when we teach kids how to harness structures like flashbacks, we're giving them the keys to unlock and share their own rich histories. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive, and I will see you in the next explainer.